Hey guys, how are we doing? It's Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another XRP Ripple update. We're going to spend this whole video talking about lawsuit updates. We had quite a lot come out last night, and to be completely frank with you guys, they're not necessarily positive for us as XRP holders. However, they're not that negative either. They're alright. Like, it's just some things that have been clarified. Some extra things, extra rulings. We're going to get into those. We're going to get into what John Deaton thinks about them, what Jeremy Hogan thinks about them, and we're just going to talk about what is next in the case. But if you don't already subscribe to this channel, guys, please hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and put some nice comments in there to make my day. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it would help the YouTube algorithm. Anyway, we're just going to jump into it. So we've got James Filan. This guy is a boss, by the way. Like, he just straight up puts all the information out there as soon as he gets it so we can see it on Twitter. Not necessarily that I understand everything that he says, but he just bang it out there. So let's get into it. So Judge Torres has granted the SEC's motion for extension of time on its objection to Magistrate Judge Netburn's DPP ruling. The objection is due 14 days after Magistrate Judge Netburn rules on the SEC's new privilege assertion. So my understanding of this is, obviously, Judge Netburn came out and said that the SEC have to turn over the emails. The SEC basically came out and said, we want to object, but will you give us 14 days so we can file this objection? And then Judge Torres has said, yes, you can have those 14 days from the day that it was filed. So I think they've got like 7 more days to file an objection to Judge Netburn's ruling. And then we'll see what Judge Torres says back to that when they file that extension. Remember that John Deaton said, I actually questioned it, is this 14 days from the decision or 14 days from the 13th of May? I was getting a bit confused because we had another decision about the 13th of May, but I'll get onto that in a second. What actually this means is, so after Judge Netburn's DPP ruling on the email, she said they've got to turn them over. The SEC now have 14 days to file their objection to that, and Judge Torres is just saying, yeah, you've got 14 days to get me that objection, and that objection will go to Judge Torres. And as John Deaton and Jeremy Hogan have said, they think it's a pretty foolproof ruling from Judge Netburn. So their likelihood is Judge Torres will agree, and that way the SEC will have to then turn over the documents. But if you remember correctly, John Deaton said there will be a settlement within 90 days if Judge Torres agrees with Judge Netburn's decision, which he thinks she will. So that's pretty expected. It's not really too much of a big deal, and we're going to get on. So that's pretty much what we expected. As I said, like John Deaton basically said this was going to happen. It is happening. So they've got to have that in by 14 days time. I think the initial ruling was like 13th or 14th of April. So they've only got like a week from now, basically, as far as I understand anyway. Next, we've got the SEC versus Ripple. A court denies Ripple's defendant motions to strike the Metz report and reopens discovery until 13th of May to redepose Dr. Metz. SEC ordered to pay reasonable expenses regarding filing the motion deposing Dr. Metz. The court criticizes the SEC, finding that the SEC has conducted itself improperly by serving an unauthorized supplemental report on the last day of discovery, but declines to strike the Metz supplemental report. So this supplemental report was written by a professor around their opinion of what XRP is, etc. The SEC filed this on the last day of discovery, and it was a huge document. And basically Ripple said, they filed it too late, can we just get rid of it? And the judge said, no, actually I would like to read it, or I would like it to be included in some way in the case. And they've got until 13th of May to then interview or depose Dr. Metz and use that as evidence as well. They'll have to pay a fine on this, and we're going to get into what I think about that in a minute because Jeremy Hogan talks about that. But basically, there's a fine for the SEC for this, and yeah, we'll get into the actual details on that. And then the third piece of information that was released, I told you there was a lot released last night, breaking, and this is something that, again, there's for us and against, and I'm going to get into my opinion on that after we've talked about the facts, and we're going to go through John Deaton and Jeremy Hogan's opinions, and then I'll sum it up with what I think. Judge Netburn denies Garlinghouse's motion to compel production of Estabrook notes. The court states Estabrook notes are no different from the notes the court previously found to be protected by privilege. The SEC fact gathering from third parties is not inherently privileged activity, but having reviewed, this bit's important, having reviewed the Estabrook notes, I find they could reveal to Garlinghouse and the SEC's internal thought processes during his meeting with Commissioner Roisman. The privilege applies. So, let's talk about what's going on. We'll go straight on to the Estabrook notes to start with. John Deaton said, I got this wrong because I predicted Judge Netburn would order the notes to be produced. I believe she would find the notes privileged but pierce the privilege because Garlinghouse has no other way of obtaining the evidence and because it was likely, unlike the SBI meeting, exculpatory. The judge disagreed, finding the meeting was no different with SBI. She is basically saying Brad was present in the meeting and he can testify what was said if it had any impact on him and Ripple. Without reading the notes, it's truly hard to evaluate. So I don't know if Jeremy Hogan talks about this. Let me quickly just find that. Yeah, here. So we'll see what Jeremy Hogan says about it, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my opinion on that. I expected the SEC to win this motion with the judge, and so far she reviewed the notes and applied the DPP factors. Also, I tweeted back in February, I don't care too much, as Garlinghouse was on the call, he can testify about what was said, uncontroverted. So, the idea of uncontroverted evidence is very, very powerful in law. It's evidence that must be believed by the court. So unless the SEC comes up with evidence in the contrary, where the Garlinghouse says about the conversation is what took place, no questions asked. And basically, what's happening here is, if you remember, there was a quote. Brad Garlinghouse basically said to the courts, or basically said that Elab Roisman had told him that XRP wasn't a security, and he's sorry that Brad Garlinghouse even had to be deposed because he thinks it's ridiculous. Elab Roisman has now since left the SEC. Brad Garlinghouse asked for these notes to be compelled, for the court. There's two thoughts of process on this, thoughts on this. Jeremy Hogan, I don't know if it's any further down. This bit is what... So basically, Jeremy Hogan says that the notes can't be exculpatory for the case, which means that they can't really change... they can't change the actual case itself. Otherwise, the judge would have pierced the DPP privilege. And also, like he says, if he says something in court, that is basically evidence unless the SEC can prove the opposite. So if he says, Roisman said this to me, unless the SEC can specifically prove that he didn't, that's what stands anyway, so they don't really need the notes. That's basically what Hogan's saying here. So he says, why is it an uphill battle? Because Ripple wasn't 100% sure it was in the notes, and it's a chance worth taking. These notes that the SEC found, after highlighting the fact that it makes the SEC look sloppy and bad, you always want to highlight that to the judge. So he's basically saying that they already put the SEC in it by asking for the notes because the SEC didn't find them, and they found, they're basically, the SEC in the first place said there was no notes, and then they've come out, and then Brad Garlinghouse said, actually, I want them notes that you say don't exist. The SEC have come out and said, okay, they are there, we'll turn them over to the judge. The judge has read them, and then said they're not actually that relevant to the case because Brad Garlinghouse can claim whatever he wants, and the SEC would have to prove the opposite, so you don't really need them. So that's where that is not, specifically a loss, but it's not particularly a win either. But also means that they're kind of not that relevant to the case, unlike the emails, which seem to be a massive, massive thing. So next, people keep asking this question. Let me see if I can. Okay. So we're going to just go to... Cool. We're going to go to this next. People keep asking this question, and we've got this from XRP Philly _. Do you think the SEC is willing to lose at summary judgment? Even if they lose of a straight Howey test analysis, doesn't that make it hard for them to go after any token that looks like XRP? So this is summary judgment. Ripple are pushing for the end of May. John Deaton thinks it will happen in early June. I personally am a bit confused about this, and I asked John Deaton about this. He's not replied yet. He's maybe asleep, but he does normally reply if I ask him a question because me and him are boys, best mates. Just kidding. But he has been on my show, so I presume he will reply if he sees the tweet. And we'll just get into what it means. He said, it depends on your definition of a loss. A loss of fair notice No, they won't chance that. But a split victory, where the judge finds early sales of XRP as security, but finds today's XRP not a security, any victory, and the SEC spins it as a win. So basically, I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but can this happen at fair notice, which is coming probably early June, and Ripple's pushing for late May? What are the odds of something like this happening? I'm getting confused. Because what I'm confused about is all of a sudden, there is this summary judgment event that I don't really understand how that works, basically. I presume it's where the judge can make a decision on the case, but how does that affect the case going forwards? And I think what it is, if I can remember correctly, and don't quote me, is they'll get some aspects of the case being like, okay, so the sales from 2013 to 2015 were securities, or may not be securities. We can't agree on that. But the sales from like 2015 onwards aren't securities. So the judge will be like, okay, summary judgment means that like some of the case, yep, that part I accept. After that date, they weren't securities. So let's get rid of the XRP, hold it out of the case, get rid of this, and we'll take that part to trial and try and discuss whether we think that is right or wrong. That's what I think is happening there. And that can happen as early as the end of May, early June, guys. So if that happens, what will happen is we'll see XRP, if that hypothetical scenario happens, by the way, we'll see XRP being able to be relisted on exchanges because it will be no longer deemed a security, the current sales of XRP. They'll just be arguing over the past sales. So that could happen late May, early June. Ripple are pushing for late May. And we actually find all this out, this scheduling, on Friday, guys. So, eyes on. Eyes on. That's as far as my understanding goes, anyway. And that's just me. And then he says, listen, I really try not to get too political. And this is not to do specifically with the case. This is just some John Deaton thoughts. And I know there's a lot from John Deaton here because I thought there was a few good thoughts here. I really try not to get too political most of the time, but I've voted for candidates from both parties. I'm hoping the House is flipped for the sole reason Gary Gensler having to go before the House Oversight Committee over and over again. He'll likely resign. So there's midterm elections coming up. He thinks that'll put pressure on Gary Gensler. And this is another thing that John Deaton tweeted last night, which I think is good to remind everybody. Regardless of anyone's opinion of Judge Netburn or her recent rulings, she gave us two absolute gems that will appear in our amicus brief, which is, amicus means like friend of the court, and that's what we are as XRP holders. John Deaton is representing like 65,000 of us or whatever. She said, and this is towards the start, my understanding of XRP is not only does it have a sort of currency value, but it also has a sort of utility, and that utility distinguishes it, I think, from Bitcoin and Ether. She's pretty bang on there, in my opinion. And then she also said, presumably under this theory, because the SEC are basically saying that, you'll see it here. Presumably under this theory, every individual in the world is selling XRP and would be committing a Section 5 violation based on what you just said. So that's where we may get this summary judgment from Judge Netburn, because she's basically saying exactly what the summary judgment might be trying to surmise. Not everybody who's holding XRP, like me and you, like when we sell it now, like the SEC are implying that we're selling a security, unregistered. So that's what she's going to try and, that's what I think that they'll try and crack down on, the summary judgment. Then this is a reply from Jeremy Hogan. When the judge told that SEC lawyer, based on that argument, every person who buys XRP is breaking the law, my jaw almost hit the floor. That's the best part of this case for me. Glad you're making that into your brief. So that's very important, guys. And then we've got one more thing from Jeremy Hogan, which is this. So this is the Metz report that we're talking about, that the SEC filed on the last day of discovery. Jeremy Hogan, this type of ruling drives me crazy in my own practice and no less here. What good is an ordered deadline if it's not enforced? I understand the judge wants to preempt issues on appeal, but this is so blatant that I hope she would do more than force the SEC to pay some money. But at the end of the day, this won't change any of the final court dates, and that seems to be what Judge Netburn thinks is the most important factor. It's just a peeve, I guess. An order is an order. Grr, I'm good. Calm down. So basically, he's just saying that it's frustrating that the SEC on the last day of discovery can come through, add some extra evidence, and then basically get extra time for discovery, and only have to pay a small fine or expenses or whatever. So that's where we are. But let's see what happens next. And then finally, one little thing I wanted to leave you with, which isn't to do with this specifically, but it is a shocker. It is absolutely a shocker in my opinion, is this. I'll leave you with it, and I'm going to sign off now, guys. Peace up, A-Town down. I do not want this to happen, guys. I don't want this to happen. Like, I'm an XRP holder. Like, I see all the ETHgate narrative, etc., etc. But for me, guys, we're all in this together. We're all, like, in the crypto space together. I don't want the SEC to be going after people. Let's just leave it up to the market to decide what's good and what's not. Put some regulatory framework out there to protect us from scams and let's say maybe like dox everyone in the team. If anyone like rug pulls or whatever, however you want to define that, I don't know. That's up to you as regulators. But let's not just start going after random cryptos because of how they've raised money in the past and start like picking which one wins, which one loses, which they've done for XRP and Ripple. It's hard enough being a Ripple holder. I don't want anyone else to feel that pain. Being an XRP holder, I don't want anyone else to feel that pain. But anyway, let's leave it here. Watch this clip, and this is Jake Layton, the ex-SEC chair who dropped the bombshell on Ripple and XRP. I was going to say enjoy, but you're probably not going to. Drop a comment and hit that subscribe button if you don't already. Peace up, A-Town down, as Usher would say.
You are going to see similar companies not subject to the same scrutiny from a enforcement point of view. And it's just a matter of jurisdiction, bandwidth, and the like. There's no inherent unfairness in that. It's, who draws the attention, etc. And people who are, similarly situated, and one is subject to a regulatory action in some jurisdiction and the other isn't. The one who isn't, may be getting a pass for the moment. Doesn't mean they're going to get a pass over time. In fact, if you see someone who is a similar situated product, subject to an enforcement action, you better expect that may come for you.